live on MMA
Jim,
Weekly.
No, I hear you, Jim. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I thought, wait a minute. Okay, let's start again in 3, 2. What is up, fight fans? Welcome to MMA Weekly's live coverage of UFC 262. Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries, along with Jeff Cain. You just got a peek inside the curtain of how the TV/podcasting business works in 3, 2. Go, Jim. Stop, Jim. Go, Jim. Jeff, we're live. We got a big one this week. The title fight that never should have been and shouldn't be, headlining UFC 262. And the co-main event that wasn't going to be is the co-main event of UFC 262. So the card loses Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards, which means it lost a ton of buys, and that's a shame because it is a showcase. It is a great fight. It is the best fight or one of the best fights that we could see in the lightweight division right now. It's a great contrast in styles. Two unbelievable guys. Oliveira, who's on a big-time win streak. Chandler, who comes over from being a champion in Bellator, although not when he left. He wasn't the champion, but he comes over and smashes the number 6 fighter in the world, Dan Hooker. And now we have it, whether Jim Grieshaber likes it or not. Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler, the pref. And what up, everybody in the chat? I will say this will never beat the all-time low of Khabib, an all-time great champion and fighter, winning the belt by beating Raging Al Iaquinta. This is a step up from that. A couple steps. But not much, in my opinion, because I don't believe it's a legit title fight.
Well, I think you have the best fighter in the lightweight division getting ready to win the title on Saturday night. And then hold that title for a while.
Hold that, yeah.
Charles Oliveira is a bad matchup for everyone in the division, everyone in the world. And nobody wanted to fight him. It's just that Michael Chandler didn't have much of a choice, and he's going to walk into a standing guillotine choke probably in the first round. But that's my opinion on it. I think this is a legitimate title fight.
Standing guillotine.
I think Charles Oliveira is the future champion. I think Charles Oliveira beats Poirier or McGregor, whichever one decides to get in there and have their neck exposed. So, yeah, I like this title fight. And so, does it have the name value of McGregor and Nurmagomedov? Nope. But I think it still does have the best fighter in the lightweight division. And the chat can go crazy on me. But, I mean, Khabib left at a good time. I'll say that. Khabib left at a good time. Or that
might not be in Charles Oliveira? See, Khabib, if he wanted to be the legit champion and beat everybody in the division like he said he did, Oliveira would have been next. I agree with that, but he doesn't have the name. He doesn't have the selling power. He would have had a hell of a lot more selling power and a name with all the Diaz fans seeing his gangster style of fighting in this fight. But I definitely think Chandler coming in will fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. Yeah. He's a beast. He comes right at when I say I don't think it's a legit title fight, guys, and Dana White has watched me before and ripped my ass. It happens, right? Anyone wants to rip me, rip me. I would not have made this as a title fight. And the reason I say it, guys, is not a denigration. It's not for me to say, hey, this is anything I have against Michael Chandler or against Charles Oliveira. I am looking at Dragnet, just the facts, man. See, I'm old as shit, so I can quote Dragnet. But what I'm saying is, man, in the Naked Gun movies were funny with O.J. Simpson stumbling all over the dock, stepping in the paint can, burning his face, those types of things, right? Before O.J. was a double murderer who got away with it. And some people think you should fry. Some people think you should have a statue, depending upon your perspective of O.J. Simpson. But I digress, okay? Jeff Cain, the reason I don't think this is a title fight is because I don't believe Charles Oliveira has legitimately done anything to deserve it. And I don't believe Michael Chandler has won enough big fights in the UFC to deserve it. Now, when I say Oliveira hasn't done anything to deserve it, people go, oh, what about his win streak, Jim? Look at his win streak. Look who he's beaten. Look what he's done. He smashed a Tony Ferguson who had his soul taken punch by punch against Justin Gaethje. A Tony Ferguson who had made weight twice, granted, and put himself in a precarious position. Oliveira has done amazing things in his last couple of fights. Now, do the wins over Clay Guida, Giagos, Jim Miller, David Tamer, Nick Lentz, and Jared Gordon impress me? Hell no. Not to get him a title shot. Of course they're impressive. They're all great fighters. They're UFC fighters. They're all impressive wins. But for a title run, hell no. His title run began with Kevin Lee. And that was after Kevin Lee smashed Gregor Gillespie with the head kick. And Gillespie looks a lot better now. That win looks a lot better now after what Gillespie just did in his last fight out against Fajeda, who really pushed Dariush the last time out, who now faces Ferguson here. But his title run began with Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson back-to-back. Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson back-to-back is not a title run worthy of your next fight being a title fight. That's just my opinion. Now the chat room can kill me.
Well, I don't think that people understand who Charles Oliveira is. I don't think that they understand the accolades that the guy has. He has the most finishes in UFC history. He has the most submission wins in UFC history.
He has 27 finishes as a pro, Jeff. 27 and 19 by submission, 8 knockouts. His striking is devastating. It's not just the jiu-jitsu. He's a third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 93.75% of his finishes are by submission. He has finished submission-wise. He's used 6 different finishes to finish fighters in the UFC. Also a record, tied with Frank Mir. So when people say, oh, Charles Oliveira isn't this, isn't that? Yeah, Charles Oliveira is that legit. He holds tons of UFC records. He's been there for over a decade. His losses came when he tried to go down to featherweight, which was terrible, and missed weight and couldn't make weight. When he's gone back to lightweight, he's lost 1 fight when he got clipped by Paul Felder in 2017. Anybody can get clipped by Paul Felder.
Felder's a beast, but badass fighter.
Yeah. And you can get clipped by a guy like Felder, right? I mean, Felder's a dangerous individual. Oliveira has a reach advantage on Chandler. He has a height advantage. He has an experience advantage. He has a huge advantage on the ground. He's got a good jab now. I mean, I think that's what happened to Oliveira when he came into
What's
the UFC.
His experience advantage over Chandler? You mean UFC experience? Because Chandler's been fighting forever. I was curious what you meant by that.
He has 38 fights to Chandler's 27. He has 11 more fights.
Okay.
And they're at they're at the highest level. Now, Chandler, I'm not
Fair
knocking
enough.
Chandler's fights are at the highest level too. People can get caught up on, oh, he was in Bellator. Bullshit. Look at those fights, man. Those are huge fights.
I do buy into that somewhat. I do buy into that somewhat, though, that they were in Bellator. I do buy into that. He fought Benson after Benson, was losing UFC fights. Bellator's level of competition is definitely a couple notches down. Let's be real.
Well, let's get Pitbull over in the UFC and find out.
And Patricky just lost to Connor's training partner, which is interesting, right? In a bloodbath, in a war, Peter Quilley.
Yeah, but Patricio didn't. Patricky did.
No.
Let's get.
And I want to see Patricio Pitbull fight Chandler in the UFC for the belt. That would be the shit. If Chandler wins the belt and then they bring over, it's like like when Raw is War invaded Monday Nitro. When I finally started watching wrestling again, I never watched it for years. I watched it as a kid because my grandfather loved it, and it would be like literally old Gorgeous George and Haystacks Calhoun. Then it was Bruno Sammartino and Bob Black. Then all of a sudden comes Hulk Hogan in Rocky 3, and the whole thing just blows up. I was a big-time Hulkamaniac, brother, saying my prayers and eating my vitamins every day, brother, watching the largest arms in the world every day, brother, watching Hulk Hogan, right? Or it was the Macho Man. Ooh, yeah. It was those guys, right? And then all of a sudden, one day it's like, Boston 316 says, I just whipped your ass. And I went to college with The Rock. And so if and The Rock, and obviously I knew him, he's one of my first interviews. I still know him. If I see him, he actually knows me, and he still doesn't give me any money or any movie roles or anything, but he knows who I am because I was the first interview I did was him. So anyway, I became a fan in those days. Well, when Monday Nitro and Ted Turner started kicking Vince McMahon's ass, Vince McMahon, who's one of the most brilliant promoters in the history of the world, decides to go like literally right at him in the Attitude Era. So the Raw is War Degeneration X guys rolled up on the Nitro event live in a tank, and they had it live on WWE TV, which was WWF at the time. They're rolling up in a tank. So I start thinking like Scott Coker should fucking roll up in a giant pickup truck with Pitbull and run everybody over and be like, there's a new, and Pitbull comes out, I'm next. That would be great, wouldn't it? We need that. Well, the UFC would never do it because they're here, but it would be amazing.
Well, remember on Amanda's last fight when Cyborg parked that bus across from the venue? It's that's as close as we could get in MMA to that.
I know we had the picture and our people didn't want to run it at the time. And I'm like, we got Cyborg's bus outside the Apex. And I thought Dana White's reaction to that was priceless. When he's like, yeah, he just laughed. He's like, yeah, shit, she got me. Marketing, Yeah. But hey, it's all good. And I think that timing is everything with fights. Timing is everything. So when you catch a guy in his career is everything. And I believe Chandler caught a lot of people at the wrong time. Now, he got caught against Pitbull, and Pitbull's a beast. There's an interview with him that I did on he's a different. I watched Patricky and Patricio practice with Henry Cejudo and those guys. And I will tell you this, I'm amazed people don't literally die in these practices. They go that hard. And there's a different style. And I believe that Patricio Pitbull is one of the few stone cold killers in the sport. Like Israel Adesanya told me in an interview I did with him after the Gastelum fight, he said, I'm willing to die in there, so I'm willing to kill. That's what Izzy said. And I go, oh, yeah, you want to win that bad? And I kind of laughed, and he looks at me and goes, no, I'm fucking ready to kill someone to win in there. And that's the type of fighter Pitbull is. But I also believe that's the fighter Michael Chandler is, and I also believe it's the fighter Oliveira is. It takes a very special type of mentality to even be in a championship fight. You have to be willing to give up everything. You have to be willing to give up control. You have to be willing to face the ultimate amount of pain, the ultimate amount of adversity, injuries, fingers that are hanging off, toes, cuts, eyes you can't see out of. You have to be willing to go there to be a champion. Is Oliveira cut from that cloth? He's a champion in jiu-jitsu, third-degree black belt. We'll find out. Michael Chandler, is he cut from that cloth? We already know because he's a multiple-time world champion. We already know that Michael Chandler is willing to give everything he has in that cage to win. The question is, in those deep waters, is Oliveira? You don't find out until you're there. Chandler's been there.
I just want to know if Chandler's going to tap or go unconscious. That's all I want to know. Is Chandler going to
you think he's going to get caught in a submission?
100%. Okay. I think he's going to get caught in a submission. I'll call
is he going to tap or is he going to be okay?
Yeah.
So you're that confident.
I'll call it it's going to be a standing guillotine in the first round. Chandler's going to overcommit, try to close the distance, and Oliveira's going to slap on a guillotine and choke him into the lower rankings of the top.
Dude, look at this though. Look at this, Jeff. Look at it. Boom. Look at this. Look at Michael Chandler. Look what he put. Look at the pressure he puts on you. Look at this, man.
Yeah.
This is if you're not ready for this shit and you're not used to this shit, he's all up in your. I mean, you don't have a shirt on, but he's all up in your shirt, man. You can't get him out. Like the big bug that crawls in and you can't get him out, and you're like all over it, and they feel it crawling again. Except he's not a bug. He's 165 pounds on fight night, smashing you in the face with fists and elbows, looking to take you down, dump you on your head, and turn your lights out.
I look, Chandler closes the distance really well, but he has to because he's usually at a reach disadvantage. And he has knockout power, no question about it. But that's also what's got him in trouble
both hands.
In fights. Yeah, but that's also what's got his pressure is what's got him in trouble in some of his losses. Is he walks into punches. He walks into danger. Oliveira, what makes him different than everybody else is he has the most submission attempts. Like he per 15 minutes, he has 3.22 submission attempts that he throws up. So every round, you're going to get at least one submission attempt from Charles Oliveira. Whenever he's in the clinch, he's not one of those guys that like tries to elbow the crap out of you and all that. He does, but more than anything, he traps your head. He gets your head. And then he ends up dragging you to the ground and either getting you with a guillotine choke or a darce or a rear naked choke when you give up your back. The guy, that's what I like a lot about Charles Oliveira is there at no position in the fight is he sleeping on anything. He's trying to finish everywhere, and you just don't get that out of a lot of fighters. I think that a lot of people don't know Charles Oliveira because he doesn't have the name value of Conor McGregor and these guys. He's not a knockout artist. But I think on Saturday, the world's going to get a wake-up call to holy shit. The UFC's had this Jim, Du Bronx, sitting in there on the roster for all these years, and we didn't know who he was. I think everybody's going to know who he is on Saturday. And I think in his next
it would have been so much better if it was Diaz. So much better if Nate was still on the card for Oliveira.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he could submit Nate Diaz, that would
remember me, I said it on the show 1,000 times. Not that he would submit him, Jeff. I said 1,000 times on the show he needed to be on a card where like a Diaz or McGregor was on it so he would get his name built up. They did. They listened to me. Not that they listened to me. I just knew what they should have done. It wasn't that smart of a thing for me to say. I think anyone would have come up with it legitimately, but the UFC did too, and they put Nate there to get the eyeballs on whoever wins this fight and build up their name for the McGregor fight or the Poirier fight, whichever one happens next. Now, it should be noted, Poirier was offered whatever he wanted, and he took the money fight against McGregor, as I would have, as he should have, because he's been an interim champ, and he's confident that he can go get the belt, in his mind, after he smashes McGregor again, because Poirier saw nothing from Conor in that last fight that would make him believe that Conor even has a chance against him. If I'm Mike Brown and Dustin Poirier, I'm going into this fight as confidently as I've gone into any fight in my life because I took Conor's best shots in round one. They didn't drop me, and I dropped him in the second round. I chopped him down, and then I dropped him, and I took his heart, and I took his soul in the octagon that night already. So Poirier's thinking I'm going to go get that big money, and then I'm going to smash the winner. That's what's going to happen here. There's zero doubt. The winner of McGregor and Poirier is going to get the winner of this fight, and it's probably going to happen, I'm guessing, at Madison Square Garden, first one back in New York City, because the timing is going to line up perfectly. There's also the possibility of Khabib coming back before the end of the year, and we don't know because people don't stay retired in sports anymore, although I would put my money on him as being a guy who probably would stay retired more than anybody. Someone saying, stop hyping up Oliveira, all right? Brian Elmore says, I got $100 that says you're wrong, Jeff. Afi MS, what's up, buddy? Says Jeff looking very confident. Remember, Afi came in that day and he was starting fights with us, and now he loves us, and we love you too, buddy. We appreciate you being here for every show. Rayette43 says, stop hyping up Oliveira. Thank you. Thank you. Tell Jeff Cain and all these other people drinking the Kool-Aid, like the Kool-Aid man breaking into my house when I was a kid, making me put 5 bags of sugar in the Kool-Aid. He's drinking the Kool-Aid of Oliveira right now, guys. Way too much. The Kevin Lee win and the Tony Ferguson win does not make him the best fighter in the division, Jeff.
Well, look, if hyping somebody up is reading their goddamn resume, then I don't know what the hell what's going on in the world. That's his fucking resume. That's what he's done. That's what he's done. And he does have the most submissions. He has the most finishes in UFC history. He has the most submissions in UFC history.
Against whom?
Correct. Against whom? Against UFC fighters, Jim. You just said
against which ones? Against which top fighters in the division? Which championship level fighters does he have these wins over?
Interim fucking champion in Tony Ferguson that you want to downplay now, but then build up the guy that beat him, right? Did if Tony Ferguson sucks so bad, then who the fuck is Justin Gaethje?
Wait. Hold up. I never said Tony Ferguson sucks. Tony Ferguson is great. Ferguson is great. I never said El Kakui sucks. I said El Kakui is not at the top of this division. You downplayed Oliveira's win over him. And after he loses to Beneil Dariush this weekend, you can see that Tony Ferguson will be a top 10 guy who meanders around and fights those guys after Dariush takes him out this weekend.
So you are downplaying Tony Ferguson.
No, not at all. No. Okay, well, hold on. I am downplaying Tony Ferguson from one standpoint. I'm downplaying the notion that he's still the same Tony Ferguson he was 3-4 years ago. That's what I'm downplaying. I love him with all my heart. If he was sitting here, I'd give him a hug. I love Tony Ferguson, but he is not the same El Kakui anymore. When you receive a beating, the likes of which he received at the hands of Justin Gaethje, you are never the same. And I'm not talking about a back and forth war where you're both taking shots and you're both taking a lot of punishment. I'm talking about being completely dominated, completely controlled, completely obliterated for 4+ rounds until you had to be saved from yourself because you could take more shots from Gaethje than every other fighter who's ever fought him combined. Tony Ferguson.
We put a lot of weight on one loss, man. People put a lot of weight on one loss.
Because Oliveira came back and destroyed him. And I don't think Oliveira is that good until Oliveira proves it to me. I don't think Oliveira is dominate Tony Ferguson in his prime good the way you do. I don't think the Tony Ferguson he dominated is the Tony Ferguson you think he dominated. I think that's the biggest difference between us when we look at Oliveira. I just don't see Ferguson the same way you do anymore.
No, Ferguson didn't all of a sudden become... nobody because he lost to Justin Gaethje. A lot of people lose.
I didn't say nobody. I just said he's not top 3 in the world anymore. That's all.
Well, I'm telling you, if Michael Chandler's top 3 in the world, then Charles Oliveira is like, -6.
Khabib would finish Tony Ferguson faster than that. Buffer wouldn't even be done with the intro by the time Khabib finished
Charles Oliveira that fast. Because what's Khabib going to do? Take Oliveira?
Well, down? I know, but that's the fight that we would really want to see, right? Is Khabib and Oliveira. But I don't think
Oliveira
that
doesn't deserve it, right? We don't want to see that fight because Oliveira doesn't deserve it.
That's the fight that everybody wants to see because that's the guy Khabib didn't beat, and Chandler just got there. That's the guy Khabib didn't face in his run. And Khabib, you said Khabib's the luckiest guy in the world that he got out when he did. I'm not trying to look, Jeff, he might go out there and smash Chandler in a minute. And then you're going to come on here and say, I told you. And I'm going to say, told me what? The guy he beat is not a championship level fighter right now in my mind either. Did he smash Poirier like that? Then I'll believe it. Then I'll believe he beats Poirier. Then I'll buy in. Or he gives Poirier a great fight. I would buy in. Even if Oliveira becomes the luckiest guy alive and he beats Chandler, and I don't mean he's lucky to win, but then it lines up by the luckiest guy alive, Jeff. All I mean is that he ends up with Conor next. He gets Chandler for the belt, and then he gets Conor. Look, you wouldn't take that over. Let's say his path was Gaethje and Poirier. Wouldn't you rather face Chandler and McGregor if you're Oliveira rather than Gaethje Poirier? That's a much cleaner path for him to be not only the champion and get his first title defense, you would much rather, if you were Oliveira, face Chandler and McGregor than you would Gaethje and Poirier back to back. That's lining up nice for him, is all I'm saying.
I don't think
kill Conor. He'll kill Conor. He'll kill Conor and throw him in a bag over his shoulder like a snake hunter. I mean, literally, Oliveira.
I don't think Gaethje presents anything that that Chandler doesn't. You know, I don't think that either one of them are easier. In fact, I would rather fight Chandler than Gaethje because of the leg kicks. You know, and he also has the knockout power. Look, it doesn't matter. Like I said, people get caught up into the PR department, right? It's like accolades and records don't really matter. It's name value. You know, so you can
but I'm not going by name value. I'm not going.
But until you beat the guy the UFC tells you is the best fighter, you're not a good fighter. It's just such an influence by the UFC's PR team. You know, is Charles Oliveira better than Poirier? Well, man,
Jeff, tell me, and there, by the way, is Ali Khan been waiting where he is. Khabib is the GOAT. No more discussion. Been waiting for you, buddy. But Jeff, answer me this. Riddle me this, man. How many fighters in the top 10 of the lightweight division right now have been defeated by Charles Oliveira? Answer me that question. How many?
No,
how many of the top 10 fighters? Just number one. He's beaten one top 10 fighter, and number 10, Paul Felder, smashed his life out with an elbow.
The former interim champion. That's the one. And none of the other ones will fight. So let's not take this out of context.
How many wins against top 10 fighters does Michael Chandler have?
All turned down. No one wants to fight. Yep, because they don't want to fight him, Jim. Call them UFC matchmakers and see how many times they've called top 10 guys and top 5 guys to fight Charles Oliveira, and the answer was
Justin Gaethje would fight him right now. Why isn't Gaethje fighting him?
Get Justin on the phone and see. Justin don't want to lose back-to-back fights. He ain't taking that fight.
You don't think so? You don't think Gaethje would take this fight?
Nope, not unless Oliveira's the champion.
I wish Ali would take my calls. Come on, Ali. You have to start taking my calls, Ali, for me to stick up for your guys in time. This is what I'm talking about, Ali. You have to return my calls. See, because I can call Ali right now.
Ali's not going to allow him to take that fight unless he's a champion. That's the position Charles Oliveira's in. They won't fight him unless it's for a championship fight because they know what's going to happen.
I can guarantee you this, that Justin Gaethje would not turn down a fight against King Kong, first of all, okay? But the first time I worked with Gaethje and Ali was when they were at World Series of Fighting, believe it or not. They hired our company to do all the marketing for them, hire their girls, do their whole ad spend and campaign, do some things like I would host weigh-ins before the ring announcer would come in. I'd get like the lower, like the first from PlayStation Radio and Justin Gaethje. And Gaethje's an Arizona boy from Safford. I've known him since his days in Rage in the Cage. And I can comfortably say right now, he wouldn't turn down a fight. I mean, if you dropped him in the middle of an ISIS stronghold and said, go fight someone, he would go fight everyone there. I just don't think he would turn that down. And I do know that some people have turned down these fights. I wonder if Khabib was ever approached, say, hey, you want to fight this guy? I wonder if Khabib turned it down. That's what I wonder, because that's an interesting question.
Look, it's not about, look, all these guys will fight anybody. You know, so we can
there he
put
is.
That on
hey, guys, what do you think in the chat? Is that guy turning down any fights?
Jim,
this guy you see right there?
Again, fighters, to sit here and suggest that any of these guys would turn down fights or are worried about fighting somebody is ludicrous. But Ali won't let him take that fight. His management won't let him take that fight, and Ali can call in. He's got my email. You know, I can tell you what he is. He's not taking that damn fight.
I'm sending Ali a video message on Instagram right now, telling him what Jeff Cain.
Ali's got my number, man, and he's got my email. He can call me.
We're gonna make some groundbreaking. We don't quite have the phone line all set up yet, because if we did, but we'll send Ali a damn eCam code. Ali, this is ridiculous. You won't believe what Jeff Cain's saying here on MMA Weekly. Hold on. Look, I'm legitimately doing this.
I'm saying, Ali, so you're not going to allow your fighter to fight somebody.
Ali, you will not believe what Jeff Cain is saying as my partner on a show here on MMA Weekly. He's saying that you wouldn't let Justin Gaethje fight Charles Oliveira because you guys are scared, and that's why we have Oliveira versus Chandler.
Don't put words in my mouth, Jim. Don't put words in my mouth. I said that he won't, but you can text.
He's going to call you now, Jeff.
Yeah, who gives a shit? He's not going to accept that fight. They're not going to accept that fight. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. Nobody accepts Charles Oliveira's fights. They had to get a title fight for somebody to line up against him. Tony Ferguson only did it because he thought he was coming off of a loss and he would beat him. And then he got dealt with. And now everybody knows not that Tony Ferguson has lost a step. It's just that Charles Oliveira was always there. And you're going to find out tomorrow night or on Saturday night that not only is Charles Oliveira the champion, that Tony Ferguson dispatches of Beneil Dariush relatively easily.
Yeah, and I went a little nuts on the Dariush Ferguson thing. I didn't even pick that fight yet, and I just said it to Guy. Got a little worked up. I'm not 100% sure on Dariush yet, but I believe I'm going to pick him. If God, if you love me, I've prayed for a lot in the past year. I've had an evil woman rip out my heart and step on my soul. I've had everything in my business go away with COVID. I've had problems and challenges within my family. I've responded by fighting and winning. But God, I've prayed to you a million times. Please, if you love me, let Ali Abdelaziz respond right now. And please let him school Jeff Cain on the fact that nobody in the Dominance MMA management fold is ducking Charles Oliveira.
It's not, this is what I'm saying about people who don't have a perspective of the fucking sport. Nobody's ducking anyone. It's about opportunity. It's about opportunity. And so people can use this hyperbole bullshit like, oh my God, he's scared of this guy.
By people, he means me, guys. By people, he means me.
Yeah. If people think that fighters are scared to get in there with another fighter, then just stop watching the sport. Just stop. Just stop altogether because you're getting
what you're saying is not that, Jeff. I'm putting words in your mouth and egging you on, of course. I'm pulling an Ariel on you is what I'm doing. This is what he said. This is what he said. You guys should fight.
Here, let's just text the UFC. Let's text the UFC lit matchmakers. Have you ever offered Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira?
Text them. I already messaged Ali. You messaged Shelby and Maynard. Let's do this, man. Come on. They need to know we're the best show in the business. We're coming hard this year. No one's going to touch us. They need to start taking our calls. Though, no time like the present.
Ali's going to be calling the UFC left and right, trying to fight Charles Oliveira after Saturday. That I can tell you.
I can tell you that too. Oh my God, Jeff, this is so much fun. Khabib beats Chandler with one hand. Come on, dude. Please, with one hand. Oh my Lord.
He might beat Chandler with one hand.
The legend of Khabib.
Have to be it better be his left hand because he's going to have to keep it up by his head. Look, Khabib's been hit.
Jeff is right on this. Fighters are not scared. Isaac, I never said fighters are scared. Jeff was saying that they don't want the fights against Oliveira. And his point is it's not the fighters being scared. It's the management teams guiding them along their quote unquote perfect path toward a title or what have you.
Because and the UFC.
Let's be honest. I mean, like I said, if Oliveira's title fight and first defense line up, that's a lot easier matchups you would think by far than Gaethje and Poirier back to back. And those are, in my opinion, the two best fighters in the division now are Gaethje and Poirier. And I believe that's going to, shake itself out. Now, my dream come true, Jeff, my dream come true in this whole scenario, assuming Khabib stays retired. And I don't really want to see Khabib come back anyway, because I never really, appreciated his style as much as I should have. And, the matchups and the way that he fights, and his striking was so good against Gaethje, though. But anyway, assuming Khabib stays on the shelf, right? Chandler Khabib would be epic. For sure, maybe. Is Chandler that good to be on that level? We'll find out. A win over Dan Hooker doesn't convince me of that. It really doesn't. And we don't know how good Patricio would be in the UFC, although I have a hunch he'd go on a title run. And I don't think the difference between the top fighters in Bellator and the UFC guys is that it's a depth thing. And it's so, look at all the UFC fighters who they didn't want anymore, who now are on Bellator. 6 of the 8 light heavyweight tournament fighters, for example, were UFC guys they didn't want anymore. So anyway, including Romero, who had just been cut. But anyway, Jeff, this is not the fighters ducking anybody. But I do think Gaethje and Poirier are the best fighters in this division. And when we sat here in January, Jeff Cain said one thing. Jeff Cain said one thing that is the smartest thing I've ever heard. This is why we have this title fight, Jeff. And it is because the UFC neglected to do what they should have done with the Poirier-McGregor fight, which is what? You said it 100 times.
Well, they should have been for a title, but they were holding out. That
should have been a title fight.
Yeah, but in reality, the UFC was hoping Conor McGregor would win and that they would get that huge rematch with Khabib and Conor. None of that happened, and so now they're left with what they've created, which is a mess of the lightweight division. But I'll say this:
Best division in the company.
We're the one guy Khabib said he would be interested in fighting is fighting for the title on Saturday. And I can tell you what, if Dustin Poirier almost caught you, Charles Oliveira is going to catch it.
Charles Oliveira is going to catch him.
So Khabib may not want to come back. I'm just saying, because Poirier had Khabib in a lot of trouble.
Well, no, I would love to see. I would love to see, Jeff. I would love to see Khabib and Oliveira. I'd love to see him in a fucking jiu-jitsu tournament. I'd love to see him just grapple in the gym because I'm a junkie. But I would love to see that fight on the ground. It would almost be like one of the only fights you'd ever see where everyone will be hoping it goes to the ground. You know, I mean, but everyone wants to stand up battles and someone getting dropped. But in that fight, for sure. But my thought is, in my opinion, is Charles Oliveira has beaten one top 10 opponent. That's Tony Ferguson. I don't believe he's the same Tony Ferguson that he was when he was the interim champ. I don't believe that he's the same Tony Ferguson that he was when he was at the top of that division and everybody thought the two best fighters were he and Khabib. Was he ever that great? We don't know. People have their runs at different times. People fight people at different points in their career. I use the Mayweather example all the time. He fought Canelo when Canelo was too young to beat him, and he fought Pacquiao when Pacquiao was too old to beat him. Timing is fucking everything, okay? In this sport, Chandler comes in. It worked out perfectly for him and for the UFC. He destroys Dan Hooker in his debut. Hooker didn't even know what was coming. Oliveira destroyed Tony Ferguson his last time out. Look, I'm not discounting Tony Ferguson's greatness. All I'm saying is I don't believe he's world best level El Cucuy anymore. I would like to have seen Oliveira beat a Gaethje or a Chandler in a non-title fight. This is a great matchup. I would love to see this as a non-title fight. I don't think either guy deserves it right now. Just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think in the chat. Jeff thinks Oliveira is the best, and he might be. Look, it's entirely possible that Oliveira beats all these guys in a row right now. Jeff starts with Michael Chandler, then Poirier. Conor won't be a factor if Poirier beats him again, but this dude might legitimately just run through his next 5, 6, 7 fights and be a 4 or 5 defending champ. I'm not saying he doesn't have the skill. I'm not saying he's not an incredible fighter. He is. Dude, he's a 3rd-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu who also has 9 knockouts in his career. How fucking rare is that? That's champion rare. I want to see him do it against the best of the best. And I still, Jeff Cain, if he dominates Michael Chandler this weekend, I will still not be more than 70% sold on him as the best in the world. I won't be. He needs to beat a Gaethje. He needs to beat a Poirier. I believe Poirier is here in this division. Poirier and Gaethje are the 2 best fighters in this division, and neither one of them's fighting for the title on Saturday night. That's why my opinion is what it is, because I think they're the 2 best, and I always believe the UFC. How has the UFC made its fucking bones? How the UFC beat boxing? How the UFC became number 1 everywhere in every combat sport for one reason and one reason only. Not really just one. Because in boxing, you never get that shit. You don't get that. The best fight the best. These are not the 2 best, in my opinion. They're not.
Well, I mean, the UFC tells people who's the best, and everybody jumps on it. You know, like Conor, right? Conor's the best until he got worked.
No, I did not mention Conor.
You know, Nate. I'm just saying an example that everybody jumps on who the UFC says is the best. You know, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe Nate Diaz beat Conor. Oh, I can't believe Poirier knocked out Conor. You know, I can't believe Rashad knocked out Chuck Liddell. You know, holy shit, Crow Cop comes in and gets knocked out by Gabriel Gonzaga. What's going on? The UFC told
How the hell did Weidman beat Silva? What? Weidman beat Silva? Yep.
Exactly. And so you can't get caught up into that stuff. You just got to look at the fights and the fighting styles and what they've done. And I'm telling you what, right now, Justin Gaethje's not the top lightweight in the world. He's not even close. He's behind Poirier. He's behind McGregor. He's behind Charles Oliveira. In my
He's
opinion,
not behind McGregor. You are crazy. Justin Gaethje will end Conor McGregor's life right now if they fought. I don't think Conor makes it out of the cage.
Yeah, he better.
There's an argument, and there's the number 1 fight I want to see. I want to see Gaethje versus Chandler, but I really want to see Gaethje and Conor because I'll never discount Conor. But Gaethje is, man, wow, Jeff. I mean, would Gaethje give everybody what they wanted and stay on the feet, or would he be smart and take him down? Because Trevor Whitman will kill him if he doesn't take him down. He'd have to try to take him down. That's how you beat Conor. Actually, no. You beat Conor by like Mayweather did by the fight getting stopped. You beat Conor like Khabib and Diaz did by choking him out. And you beat Conor like Poirier did by chopping down his leg and knocking him out. Conor's been beaten in every way. The aura of Conor is gone, like it was with Mike Tyson. Look what the fuck happened to Mike Tyson after the aura was gone. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Conor, but it very well could. It could very well be the beginning of a big-time slide for him that sees him lose to everyone he fights and do it for the money. Now, he made $180 million last year. According to Forbes, he's the highest-paid athlete. I don't know if you guys saw that. Conor McGregor, of course. But, Jeff, he sold a whiskey company. He's a serial entrepreneur. Maybe he wants to buy Man United. He talked about it yesterday. Conor McGregor focused on fighting all the way through. Maybe would have been one of the best ever. But how great is Eddie Alvarez? Did Conor really win the second Diaz fight? There's a lot of debate about that. Conor McGregor's wins against Cowboy Cerrone, who's getting finished by everyone he fights these days. Sorry, Cowboy. All respect due. But it is the truth. So Conor McGregor, I mean, Poirier might even beat him worse. Conor McGregor might get the living shit kicked out of him by Poirier. And I believe Poirier is the best in the world. I do. But I don't know how this weekend is supposed to be. I mean, look, Dana's a promoter and everyone buys what he sells, but I don't know how people are buying this as the title fight in this division right now. A loaded, stacked, incredible division. But, I mean, it's worth the argument. They are fighting for the title, Jeff. They are both great fighters. The contrast in styles. The thing is, Chandler's wrestling and Oliveira's jiu-jitsu, because they're both very dangerous on the feet. Oliveira's got the reach, maybe a little bit of an edge in striking, maybe not because of Chandler's power. The question is, which one, and how comfortable will Chandler be trying to take him down? Will he even think about it? I think the strategic, the approach from a strategy standpoint in this fight is everything, man, because will Chandler be confident enough to know that he can take him down, because that will change everything in the stand-up. If Oliveira knows that Chandler wants no part of taking him down, that changes the entire fight for him in a major, major good way.
I don't think Chandler's going to have a choice for this fight to go to the ground. I think that Oliveira is going to take this fight to the ground or finish it standing with a submission. I mean, like I said, Chandler gets a lot of hype. He's got one fight in the UFC. And he had a beautiful Bellator run, but like I said, skill set wise, he's a power puncher going in here against a guy who has a reach advantage, a height advantage, and a hell of a lot, a huge advantage on the ground. I mean, huge. Like I cannot state that enough. The advantage on the ground is going to be night and day. It's night and day. There's no way Chandler takes this fight to the ground unless he gets hurt on his feet. If he gets hurt on his feet, then well, you might as well take it to the ground. But Charles Oliveira is about to show the world what managers already know, you know, and what the fighters already know, what Khabib already knows, you know, and Poirier is the best matchup for Oliveira in the division because Poirier actually has a ground game. Conor doesn't have a ground game. Chandler has a wrestling type of ground game, not a submission ground game. Gaethje, we already saw what happened against Khabib, man. I mean, I don't even want to see Gaethje and Oliveira fight because I don't think it goes well.
Chandler's jiu-jitsu is a little underrated, Jeff. He's not as bad. I don't say bad. You're not saying he's bad, but he has a bunch of wins by submission. He has 7 submission wins. So if you saw what fight was it? It was the Brandon Gertz fight when he arm triangled him, technical submission. I mean, he's got some pretty good game there. So he could technically catch Oliveira and submit him. I mean, we've seen it happen before where big-time jiu-jitsu players get submitted. And Pettis actually submitted him. Pettis submitted Oliveira. And that's a big – and, you know, Anthony Pettis is really good in the jiu-jitsu part of him. He's submitted Benson too. So Anthony Pettis submitted Oliveira, and that was back at UFC – where's it at, Jeff? I know it was 2016, long time ago. Yeah, UFC on Fox, Maya versus Condit. Yep. But he was submitted by Pettis and Ricardo Lamas. He has been submitted before.
Yeah. But it's submitted by Pettis, who, you know, and what was Pettis at the time in 2016?
He was just coming off his title run.
I mean, there you go. You know, I mean, like I said, we're having to go back to a foregone era to talk about that stuff.
By the way, I love you, Jeff. This is
I
great.
mean, Chandler's not submitting Oliveira unless he just knocks him almost unconscious and then grabs onto something. And there's a difference between wrestlers. What Chandler does is he takes you down, arm triangle chokes is what wrestlers get, right? A lot of
Yep.
times they're able to get that position easily. And then they just have to step to the side and boom, you're caught in an arm triangle choke. Oliveira is not going to fall for that. But if he gets hurt, then all games, everything's off. I mean, you see people with submission wins. I mean, Chuck Liddell had a submission win. It's because you hurt a guy. You hurt a guy, and then you're able to finish them with something that you wouldn't have finished them before because they're hurt. I can't see under any circumstance other than Chandler basically knocking out Charles Oliveira where he's going to submit Charles Oliveira. I think that Chandler's going to be Chandler presses forward. He kind of doesn't use a lot of lateral movement. He's a straightforward kind of a fighter, and I don't feel like that poses a hell of a lot of a threat other than the knockout. To Oliveira. I think Oliveira is going to win the clinch game. He's going to win on the ground game, and he's likely to win the striking with his reach and his jab that he has now. So we're going to see. Chandler's extremely confident. I mean, this is his dream. This is what he's built for. Built up for his whole career. This is it. This is his moment. But everybody's moment is this moment too. It's Charles Oliveira's moment as well. And I just don't see Chandler doing it. In fact, like I said, the only person that I think, the only two people in the lightweight division I think that matches up halfway decent with Charles Oliveira is Dustin Poirier and Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I actually like the way Poirier matches up better because he's going to present some things to Oliveira on his feet that Khabib just doesn't. He just doesn't. And then people
I think they should have held the belt, Jeff. I think they should have held the belt. They held it for 511 days when Conor had it. 511 days he held up the division. And they didn't do they did an interim. They did Kukui and Kevin Lee. But Conor McGregor held up that belt for a long time. 511 days. I saw it earlier this week. Brett Okamoto or one of those guys wrote about it. I don't want to just steal someone's shit and not attribute it like a lot of other people seem to do in this business. But listening to everything, and I go back and forth and watching all these things and studying the fighters and their mannerism. Look, these two guys are champion level. They have that medal inside of them. I mean, METTEL, right? They have it, okay? And they have all the intangibles that you would need to be a champion. The one thing I'm wondering is in the depths, in the deep waters, will Oliveira succumb to Chandler's relentlessness? Will Oliveira, not having had the championship experience that Michael Chandler has, will he succumb to that? Is that something Chandler feels like is a big advantage for him the further the fight goes on? Look, hey, Jeff, answer me this. When's the last time Oliveira fought 5 rounds? When's the last time Oliveira saw a 4th round? I'll answer it for you. Never.
Damn, he's not going to on Saturday either.
That's a tribute to his greatness because most of them are finishes that he wins, yeah.
Kevin Lee was ranked whenever Oliveira beat him. But anyway.
No, I said how many times has he fought 5 rounds? How many times has he fought more than 3?
Yeah, he doesn't have to. I mean, he just doesn't have to. It's and I mean his last fight went to decision, but that's just that is a testament of how tough Tony Ferguson is. Because he beat the crap out of Tony Ferguson.
That armbar, yeah. That armbar would have stopped anybody.
Yeah, he just doesn't go the distance. I mean, hell, you'd have to go back. Let's go back and see the last time. I mean, outside of Tony Ferguson, because that went to a decision. Everybody saw it at UFC 256. For the last time he went to a decision was Jeremy Stevens in 2014.
And he missed weight for that fight. That was when he kept missing weight every fight out. He lost to Cub Swanson, Cowboy Cerrone, Frankie Edgar, Jim Miller, Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis, Bully Lamas, and Paul Felder.
Featherweights. He should have never dropped down to featherweight, and so he got past that, and he's lost once in the last 4 years since moving back to the lightweight division. But
he has 14 submission wins in the UFC, which is of course by far a record. 14 submission wins in the UFC. Think about that for 1 second. Fucking 14 submissions of the best fighters in the world. 14.
Well, yeah, and 6 different ways. 6 different type of submissions.
Yeah. No shit.
But look, I mean, those fights that he fought at featherweight are kind of crazy. I mean, Frankie Edgar's a former champion. He lost to him by decision way back in 2013. That Nick Lynch fight, when that happened, Nick Lynch was on the rise. But yeah, he should have never gone to featherweight. I forgot that he even fought Max Holloway. He had the neck injury in that fight.
Neck injury. Yep, that stopped the fight.
But yeah, I don't care what anybody. Max Holloway is one of the greatest fighters
Of all time.
on the roster right now, and he. I wish he wouldn't have taken a fight at lightweight when he did, but that was because the UFC needed him to.
Do you think people think Chandler's too good? Do you think Chandler's overrated?
I don't think his knockout power is overrated. I mean,
right.
Yes, Chandler can knock everybody out.
So he has one way to win this fight, is what you're saying. One way, and that's by knocking him out. That's it. Like, he's not going to outlast him, wear him down, win a decision. You can't see maybe because, look, you start chopping his legs a little bit. You start beating him up a little bit. You wear him down. You have the cardio advantage if you're Chandler against almost anybody. But, the deeper it goes and the dirtier it gets and the nastier it gets and the bloodier it gets, that's Michael Chandler's fight. That's Michael Chandler's fight. So the deeper it goes and the more he can beat him up and wear him down, he can probably do some ground and pound the takedowns, and you're not thinking of his jiu-jitsu as much then, although you don't want to fall into what Chael had happen against Silva late in that first fight in Brazil when he beat him up the whole fight. I mean, if you want to look at a blueprint, do what Chael did against Anderson Silva, right? But even then, you can still get caught in a submission very late. And Oliveira, would you say, Jeff, it's safe to say probably the best, other than maybe Royce Gracie, maybe the best jiu-jitsu player in UFC history? Is that a stretch? Where does he rank? He's a third-degree fucking black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? And
he has the most submission wins. Look, it's hard to say. As far as for an MMA fighter, his jiu-jitsu is as good as anybody's. Are there better jiu-jitsu
in
fighters
history
fought in MMA? Yeah, look,
Royce Gracie, Damian Maia, who else? Mackenzie Dern.
Well, yeah, Mackenzie Dern. I don't know off the top of my head. You'd have to go back and look. At the time, early on, even BJ Penn. There's been some high-level jiu-jitsu guys, but it doesn't necessarily translate into wins. I think Frank Mir and Nogueira. Look, we can't sleep on those guys, right? We can't sleep on Big Nog, and Frank Mir are two of the greatest submission fighters in the Fabricio Verdum, for that matter. But Charles Oliveira for MMA, he's a different cat. Like I said, he's submitting you in the clinch. He's setting up submissions from positions that people don't even think they have to worry about a submission. It's just like, oh shit, this guy's already.
That's why I want to see him fight Nate. I want to see him fight Nate because Nate Diaz jiu-jitsu is no joke, man.
Yeah, Nate needs to get. We'll see what happens to Nate. What's probably going to happen is
Verdum too, Verdum and Ferguson. Ferguson's high level Eddie Bravo jiu-jitsu, and Oliveira, it wasn't even a factor in that fight.
No, not at all. No, Oliveira's submissions were the factor. If you want to ask me, the greatest heavyweight submission fighter is Nogueira, because you look at his totality of his career in Pride. And then, of course, you have Verdum and Frank Mir in there as far as the heavyweights. And then everybody else, Khabib even, Khabib submits,
Jacare.
Jacare. And then, like you said, Damian Maia. And there's been other people,
Mackenzie.
Jacare, and the Mackenzie's there now. And she's definitely, and then, let's not forget Ronda Rousey, the armbar.
All right, so here's what I got. You ready, Jeff? Here's what I got. Apparently, I'm not the only one. This is from wayofmartialarts.com, if I'm attributing here. The top 15, they have Royce Gracie, Damian Maia, Jacare, Tony Ferguson, Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, Mackenzie Dern, Charles Oliveira, Brian Ortega, Fabricio Verdum, Nick Diaz, BJ Penn, Ryan Hall, Gunnar Nelson, Kron Gracie. Those are their 15 of all time.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that because,
Damian Maia's a world class, Afi. Damian Maia's world class jiu-jitsu player.
Oh, without question, without question.
Afi in the chat was questioning.
I don't know how far Royce. That goes back to the early days, right? When Royce fought somebody who was relevant, he got pummeled later on in the career, because that was such early days when it's easy to beat people. I don't even want to get into the first UFC, because the first UFC was stacked for Royce Gracie. and I'll just say that. And that's a fact. Hoist Gracie was allowed to wear his gi. He was allowed to wear his uniform. Nobody else was.
That was talk about a huge advantage for him to have the gi on.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage, and so and we don't allow that anymore, right?
I mean, you literally stick to a dude when you have a gi on. Like, I mean, there's no getting away from him in a gi. No fucking chance.
He used his gi to choke people too. He used his gi to win those UFCs.
And you could.
And so, but look, that was like I said, the UFC 1s and 2s and stuff. Those were promoted by the Gracies to promote Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and then the only one that was allowed to wear his combat uniform in the cage was the Gracie. And so let's take that with a grain of salt. Hoist Gracie was a badass and way ahead of the game at the time, but submitting Art Jimerson, and Kimo Leopoldo is hardly submitting a legitimate guy who's versed in jiu-jitsu. And so Hoist, and I'm not taking anything away from Hoist. It's a different era, right? It's hard to compete, hard to compare eras. Hoist was submitting everyone who was anyone at his time. But we also do, as far as honesty and accuracy, no one was a jiu-jitsu black belt or a brown belt or even a blue belt that fought Hoist Gracie back then. And so Hoist had a huge advantage. The deck was stacked. Now, if Hoist were to come along now, you wouldn't see Hoist win very many fights. And so that's how I feel about that. But yes, Hoist Gracie was one of the greatest submission people of all time. I'm not downgrading Hoist. I'm just saying it's hard for me to compare what he did in the early UFCs to people actually submitting, Nogueira getting his arm snapped by Frank Mir, right? That just puts Frank Mir on another damn level.
That was incredible.
Stratosphere. Another.
That was incredible, Frank.
Not only, yeah. And then there's other people. Sakuraba. People are forgetting Sakuraba from Japan, one of the greatest submission fighters of all time. The Gracie Killer. In fact, if you're gonna put Hoist Gracie on that list and not Sakuraba, then you didn't do your due diligence. Or in my opinion, you didn't. And so I don't know, but Charles Oliveira is one of the right now in the game. Him and Mackenzie Dern, man, are the two that are still getting wins over top level competition with submissions. We'll see. Chandler, I mean, like I said, Chandler's got good top game. When he's on top of you, he pounds the shit out of you. And so that sort of nullifies submission game. But I feel like Oliveira is going to control his posture, and Chandler won't be able to do that if he gets top position. But if Chandler hurts Oliveira, then all that's out the window. But I think that goes without saying, right? Anybody gets hurt.
Anybody gets hurt. But the crazy thing about Oliveira now, if you go back and you watch, as I've done multiple times, his win over Kevin Lee, that shit was crazy. Because remember, Lee's coming off the head kick of Gregor Gillespie, who I still think is a huge superstar and a potential title contender down the line. But Kevin Lee is a brutal fighter. He's a wrestler. He's great in the clinch. He's got a lot of power. The way Oliveira, and in round, I'm amazed he didn't finish the fight in round 2. In round 2, that sequence with the uppercuts, with the elbows, and then he took Kevin Lee down, and Kevin Lee did everything he could and barely escaped the armbar in round 2. But in round 3, when Oliveira came out and won the fight, Jeff, it was dirty. It was nasty. He set it up from the feet. Kevin Lee is in on a single leg, right? And he pulls up on the left leg of Oliveira in a single leg like this, right? And Oliveira, right as he did that, sunk the choke in. He got the choke on the feet, yanks Kevin Lee down as he still has him in that choke. Think John Jones Machida against the cage, and then he drops him down, and then he has him in the guard, and he slaps that body triangle on with those feet, and it did not take Kevin Lee long to tap. But the sequences that led to the submission attempts are, to me, what set Oliveira apart. He has elite striking. His angles, his elbows, he throws a lot of elbows. It's nasty. So people say Michael Chandler needs to close the distance. He really needs to be fucking careful closing that distance, because those uppercuts and those elbows, they'll turn your lights out. And then before you know it, he's got a hold of your neck and he's dragging you down and you're done. And you said standing guillotine, Jeff. That's because Chandler's got to close the distance. So if you want to watch the greatness of Oliveira, watch the Kevin Lee fight. It was an incredible performance. One of the best I've seen. His best one for sure. And then Tony Ferguson with the armbar. And then, I mean, that was another incredible performance by Oliveira. I don't discount his ability and how great he is, but I just don't think he's ready for the title shot yet. He needed one more big win. That's my only point.
when with that Kevin Lee fight, what I want people to watch and then consider, might blow your mind, is does Charles Oliveira give up the single leg to get the choke? Does he bait him? Because if you watch that replay, as soon as he changes levels to go for the leg, he's got the choke already in. He almost has his neck before he has his leg. And so I'm kind of wondering if he didn't bait him in to go in for a single leg and then just choke the life out of him. I think that Chandler needs to keep this at distance, and I know he's going to he's going to be at a reach disadvantage. I think he needs to land or keep this at distance and land a bomb, because in the clinch, it's like you said, Oliveira, he hits you with elbows, he hits you with little shots on the inside, and he gets you to play defense, and then boom, he's working on a submission, and you're like, shit, he just elbowed me twice. Now he's got my neck, and he makes you play defense. He puts you on the defense, and so the threat to himself is eliminated. You know, you have no offense because you're fighting off all this crap I'm doing to you. And so the threat to me is nullified. And I think Charles Oliveira does that as good as anybody in the business. And there's other people that do that really well. I mean, I think Poirier does that really well. When he's in the clinch, he'll throw on a guillotine or he'll grab an arm and sort of, he just makes you honest, right?
Tony's great at that too. Tony's great at that too. He submitted Kevin Lee from his back.
Yeah. Tony is absolutely great from there. And I think that that's a position in this fight that Oliveira can have. I think Oliveira has a lot of success in the clinch and, of course, on the ground. I think where he is going to have trouble, if he has trouble with Chandler's a fast starter. Chandler doesn't wait. He bashes the gas down. As soon as the bell rings, he's going to come across there. He's going to throw a big punch. He's going to pressure you. You've got to move laterally, left and right, and try to catch him. Get him out of position. But if he lands those big bombs, and you can see it with the Hooker fight, he had Hooker running from him basically, which was weird because that's not the Hooker that we've seen in the previous fights. But then again, that's just a testament of the danger that Michael Chandler presents in his hands, man. I mean, Michael Chandler hits you, you're gone. You're done. And if you're not done, you're seriously hurt. He's probably going to finish you in a few minutes or a few seconds later. This is a different matchup, though. I feel like, because I'm the opposite. I feel like the UFC probably should have slowly brought Chandler along rather than throw him into this. And on the embedded, you hear Dana White say that after talking to Chandler, he told, the UFC lawyers, just give him anything he wants. And so he got that backup title fight. If he was the backup for the title fight, and he got the Hooker fight, now he's in the title fight. And so I feel like maybe they should have kept him, back a little bit. And I know that some people are like, oh, Charles Oliveira's getting to the top of the division. I think that Chandler might be the one that's getting there before he should get there in the UFC. Now, Chandler's had a great career, a legendary career in Bellator, and he had a beautiful, one of the greatest UFC debuts. But man, he's fighting somebody this time, and I think he's never faced anybody like a Charles Oliveira.
Never faced anybody like Charles Oliveira. Yeah, I mean, there aren't many people in the world like Charles. I mean, a third-degree black belt with that level of striking is almost impossible to come by. If you're looking at people, I mean, look, Patricio Freire is a really good. I mean, look, he is he's definitely he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's an elite striker on that legit level. He might be a better striker than Oliveira, but I'd say the Pitbull, matchup is the one where that was as close as you're going to get. He's probably the closest that you're going to compare, and Pitbull TKO'd Chandler in 1 minute and 1 second of round number one. And you look at, I mean, who else has Chandler fought who has that kind of jiu-jitsu, and also can strike? He fought Patricky Pitbull twice, beat him both times, long time ago. I mean, he has a lot of wins over guys like Eddie Alvarez, I mean, and Benson Henderson and that kind of level of fighter. But again, is Michael Chandler on the level of a Poirier or a Gaethje with the competition he's faced? Gaethje came in from WSOF, and I would say he's had an incredible UFC run. He has met or exceeded every expectation we had for him coming in, unless you expected him to be the champion, right? Not the interim champion, as Poirier has been. I still would love to have seen Poirier and Gaethje as the two best guys in this division, and that would be the title fight to me. They've already fought. I was there in Arizona. Very, very close fight, back and forth. Gaethje had, it seemed like Poirier was literally done, and then Poirier came back and won. But I do think, we're going to get some clarifications. we're gonna get. I mean, I just don't think this is a title fight, and it's hard for me to look at it as the two best guys in the world. And a title fight to me has to be the two best guys in the world. And I don't think these are the two best guys in the world. I don't even think these guys are top three. I don't. But we'll find out. We'll see. You know, I mean, if I'm going Khabib, Gaethje, and Poirier are the top three.
Well, I don't agree with that. But I mean, it is what it is, right? And very rarely is it the top two guys that fight for the title. I mean, it's rare. It's rare. Or in my opinion, I mean, in my experience, you know, boxing killed itself. You know, to get to that, boxing killed itself. The UFC didn't have to do anything but sit back and watch, give it enough rope to hang itself. But you know, the top guys don't always fight each other. You know, they just don't. You know, I mean, and we're not seeing John Jones fight for the heavyweight title right now. You know, we've had Nick Diaz fight for the title off of a loss and a year suspension. You know, we've had Ali Aquina fight for a title.
Yep.
You know, we've had all kinds of people fight for titles that didn't. Betts Correa. You know, Liz Carmouche. What did they do to get a title fight? You know, they just needed somebody
for a fight. Yeah,
they just needed somebody to get. They just needed a body to go in there against Ronda, and so that's why those got it. And then for GSP, it was the biggest fight that they could do was Nick Diaz, and who cares if he's on a loss or not? So the UFC looks at it as what's the biggest fight we can sell. They don't care about the belt, and I've said that all along.
It's not this one. This isn't the biggest fight you can sell. No one's buying this fight. I don't think. They lost a lot of buys when Diaz bumped off the card. A ton of buys.
I mean, I don't know. Diaz's popularity is he's popular when he fights a real popular fighter. But you know.
Well, he kind of made Masvidal though. Masvidal was never that popular. Diaz kind of made him.
But Masvidal had a very strong base with hardcore fans.
Yeah, so but I mean, I'm talking about like mainstream, multi-million. You know, Diaz would have meant probably 400,000 more buys on this card.
Well, I think that Masvidal built himself up with the 3-piece and a Coke, 3-piece and a soda, as much as any win that he has. Well, outside of. Actually, I'll you know,
you're right. The 3-piece and a soda was the biggest thing. You're right.
And Ben Askren, right? And Ben Askren. They did more for Masvidal than Nate Diaz ever did. But yeah, you know, I think these guys are definitely. Chandler's the one I question. I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I don't question whether Charles Oliveira should be in this fight. I question whether Chandler should be in this fight. And the reason why. The reason why these two are fighting is because the UFC chose to put together the biggest fight they could put together to make money. And so Poirier is fighting Conor, who's not even in the top 5, I don't think, right now. And so that's their money fight. And this is the fight where they're going to this is the legit fight, right? You know, where we're going to try to establish the new, you know, this is the end of an era. You know, we haven't touched on that yet. That the lightweight division right now, we're going through this end of an era. Although I don't think Khabib ever had an era. He had a moment.
He beat Raging Al for the belt. Enough said.
And I don't think Conor had an era in the lightweight division. I think Conor had an era in the UFC, but not in the lightweight division. And so really the lightweight division has kind of been weird around. And I think this fight here, we're going into a new era. We're going into new contenders. You know, it's not the same old. We're not going to talk about Khabib anymore. You know, we're probably not going to talk about Conor anymore. Or we're not going to talk about Poirier anymore, depending on what happens in that trilogy fight. What we're going to be talking about is the Chandlers and the Oliveiras and the other people coming up. And so
how fast we got to this era. How fast we got to this era. Jeff, it isn't that long ago when it was Edgar and Maynard and Benson and those guys, man. And TJ Grant, who had to retire with the concussion, he was on his way to a title fight. It just with the division was those guys. And then all of a sudden, you have Anthony Pettis come in and beat Benson, ushering in a new era. You think, wow, who's going to beat Pettis? RDA comes along and dominates Anthony Pettis. I was sitting right there when Alvarez beat RDA. That was a shocker. and that was at right before UFC 200. It was the Thursday night card when they did Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Joanna was the headliner on Friday. UFC 200 was the Saturday, and that was that week. So since that week, Conor McGregor, then you had, Tony Ferguson being an interim champ, and you had Khabib beating Raging Al, and Conor never lost the belt, but he was strict. I mean, it just was the whole division, for a division with this much talent, this many elite fighters, has literally been a shit show. Khabib gave it the stability, but he beat Raging Al to win the belt. And I remember doing a whole entire radio show outside the arena in Glendale for the Gaethje-Poirier fight, just bitching for 4 hours about how Khabib wasn't a legitimate champ because he beat Raging Al to win the belt. At that point in time, they would have thrown a garbage man in there to make that a title fight. And that's no disrespect to Raging Al, but he never should have sniffed a title fight in a million years. And ironically, he goes 5 rounds. But this division, in terms of seeing the best fight the best, the curse of Tony versus Khabib that never happened, I mean, it's crazy, man. It is literally crazy. So look, and whoever says Conor versus Dillashaw is like a 135 pounder, guys. Come on, let's be real here. But Jeff, all I'm saying is I don't believe Chandler's in the position where he should have a title fight. I don't believe Oliveira's there yet. But sometimes you get these opportunities, you get a chance to take advantage of them. I just wonder where Gaethje fits, because everyone seems to think, and I know you do too, that the fight would be the winner of McGregor and Poirier against the winner of this fight. This is going to be a brutal fight. In any note, the winner going to get the winner of Poirier versus McGregor, which means that would be their first defense, and Gaethje's still kind of on the outside looking in. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to answer some questions, but I don't think it answers enough.
Well, in the fight that I want to see in the lightweight division, it's a non-title fight. When Michael Chandler loses to Charles Oliveira, he's going to fight Justin Gaethje. That's the fight. That's the fan-friendly fight.
I don't think Gaethje. I don't take a fight against the losing fighter if I'm Gaethje. I'm waiting for a title shot. His next fight should be a title shot, but he did lose his title shot, even though it was to Khabib. So do you throw away that loss because it was to Khabib? I mean, then you throw away Poirier's loss to Khabib, right? You have to. I mean, if you're going to hold the loss to Khabib against Gaethje, you hold Poirier too.
Yeah, but you can't throw away Gaethje's loss to Poirier. You could throw out the Khabib one if you want to, but you can't throw out that one. And so
three years ago in a really close fight, I want to see the rematch. That's my point.
Gaethje's got to do something here. I mean,
they're the last two interim champs, though. With Khabib gone, they're the last two interim guys. That made sense to me to make that fight. But obviously, it doesn't make sense because Poirier is wrapped into the McGregor trilogy, and nothing's getting in the way of that. So that's just a bad break for Gaethje. But this fight here probably should have been Gaethje. But, they don't want him coming off a loss. So maybe he should get the winner. I don't know. But Justin's it's going to be a while for him if he's looking for a title shot.
Yeah, he's probably not going to get a title fight unless he's. And look, we can talk about the Khabib and Raging Al thing. The UFC didn't put that fight together.
No.
Tony Ferguson blew his knee out on a wire
and Max couldn't make weight.
Yeah, and so that came together literally in like 2 days. I mean, so that's not the fight. The UFC didn't put that together. That's just Khabib had a training camp. They had a title fight. Tony Ferguson blows his knee out doing a damn interview with an incompetent studio with wire or big cables all over the damn floor. And then Max steps up and then that fight wasn't able to happen. And so they're just like, who the hell will take it? Raging Al will take it. Of course, Raging Al.
That would have been interesting. It would have been interesting if Max
because that would have been interesting. Yeah. I don't like seeing Max fight out of his weight class. Because I think Max is right where he should be, and I felt like he won that last fight, so I don't know. I feel like Max is where he needs to be. I don't like he's not big enough to take fights outside of that. There's some big lightweights out there, man, and a lot bigger than him, and it worried me. I think you saw that in the one fight that he did come up on short notice and step in. He got the punches. He just doesn't do the damage at lightweight, and then he absorbs those big shots. I didn't like seeing that.
That Poirier fight was close, though. That was close, man. And I have to. Where's Peck Free? Peck Free. Let's put that up on the screen, guys. Jim is a fool. I've been called worse. So why am I a fool, Peck Free? Throw that in the chat for me there. Which thing that I said? Because I said a number of things that could make me look like a fool. Which one?
Down on me too. Yeah, narrow it down on that. What are we crazy about?
And I sound like I'm dissing these guys, Jeff. They're both great fighters. I'm not dissing them. I just don't think this was the title fight. But it is the title fight. And if you look at the odds, Jeff, it's very close. In fact, the fights on this card, you don't have any huge favorites for the most part. Giagos is the biggest one, but I see Oliveira and he's the favorite pretty much across the board everywhere. I see him as big as minus 163 and as low as minus 130. I see Chandler at plus 130 and plus 105. So
okay, those are close though.
Very close. And Ferguson and Dariush, same thing. Minus 180, the biggest one on Dariush, and plus 140 for El Kukui. So I mean, it looks like evenly matched
Dariush
fights.
Dariush is the favorite in that fight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jim is a fool at times, Afi. Thank you. Yes, so at times he clarified.
Yeah, jump on that, everybody. I'm just saying that. Beneil Dariush has a tendency to get in these big brawls, right? Tony Ferguson's going to love that.
He's the king of the brawl. Yeah.
Yeah. But what also Tony Ferguson has made a wholesale changes to his training before this fight. After the 2 losses, he changed everything up, and so
it's good.
We don't really know. We don't know what we're going to see out of Tony in this fight. We don't. It's either going to be great or it's not going to mesh together. You know, that's the way it always happens when you train, when you switch training camps and change striking coaches and all that. Either it does phenomenally well for you, or you're not firing on all pistons and it's not all smooth yet. It's going to take some more time. So I don't know what we're going to see out of Tony Ferguson, but I do know that Tony, if gets hit and gets hurt, is going to fall back to Tony. Right? He's just going to go back into Tony mode, and I feel like Dariush's fighting style plays in to Tony Ferguson. I think that Ferguson's going to love a brawl with Dariush, and Dariush has knockout power, but we've seen how Tony has a ridiculous chin and his ability to take damage. And so I feel like Tony's going to win that fight. I don't feel like Dariush has any advantage over Tony. I think that they're pretty closely matched. I just feel like Tony has more ways to win. He's more versatile. But
20 finishes, 12 knockouts, 8 submissions for Kukui. And Dariush is a black belt too, though. They're both about equal in terms of he's been a world jiu-jitsu champ, silver medalist 3 times, bronze once, and then a world no-gi. He's been a 3-time gold and a 1-time silver winner. So, no-gi is obviously more of a help in MMA, but he's a very high-level jiu-jitsu. I would say that neither guy has an advantage jiu-jitsu-wise. It's a wash. It's almost a wash skill-wise across the board, man. This is pretty evenly matched, this fight. I like Dariush a lot. And me saying that Dariush is going to beat Tony Ferguson earlier, that's not a knock on Ferguson. I think Dariush is fantastic. And everybody's been seeing him on this run. He finally made, cracked the top 10. He's 9, Hooker's 8, Dos Anjos 7, Kukui is at 5 with Connor 6. So this is, this fight, man, I don't know what to say about this fight. And we'll probably only pick the co-main in the main. I would say I'd take Caitlin Chukagian over Oahu in that fight, and I'd take Burgos over Barbosa and Rogerio Bontorin over Matt Schnell on the main card. But I would say the 2 fights, and with losing the Diaz-Edwards fight, which is a huge fight, that's unfortunate. But Ferguson and Dariush, Jeff, about as evenly matched as you're going to find, skill-wise. Each guy, they're both great at everything.
No, I think it's a closely matched fight. I think the fighting style is what's going to be the difference. I think that Dariush has this tendency to get in brawls, and the guy you don't want to do that to is Tony Ferguson, unless you're Justin Gaethje, who just has more power and those leg kicks and stuff. He was able to get into a brawl with El Kukui and win, but he's really kind of the only one to do that. And so even Oliveira, I don't feel like that was like a brawl. I felt like he stayed more controlled than the Gaethje fight with Tony. But I feel like I like Dariush as a person. I'm going to say that. I that guy is one of the most mellow people that you're going to meet in the sport.
Very nice.
He's a killer. He's a killer.
Does good things. He's involved with mental health and illness and helping people there. And he's Iranian. He's done a lot there. But yeah, he's a good dude. He trains out of King's MMA in Huntington Beach. I was asking my boy KG about him. He said he's a great teammate, great dude, humble, all these things. And, that's where Kelvin Gastelum and Marvin Vittori and Verdum is kind of the leader of that crew. And I don't know, man. The Jakar Close fight, this is where I wonder how good Dariush really is, because Drakkar Klose is a beast. I've called 4 of his fights on his way up. This dude, I mean, he was supposed to fight Jeremy Stevens. Drakkar Klose is a very high-level striker. This turned into a brawl. Dariush was hurt big time. It was the last fight with fans, Izzy and Romero, March 7th of last year. Dariush going back and forth with Klose on the feet in a brawl. Dariush was actually out on his feet momentarily in that fight. While in that position, he managed to land a counter that dropped Drakkar Klose and ended that fight. And then he beat Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman with the spinning elbow. I've watched Holtzman train a lot in person. He's a beast. And then Carlos Diego Ferreira, a very close split decision in February at the Overeem Volkov fight night. So he has been pushed and had some very close fights against fighters the level of Drakkar Klose. Carlos Diego Ferreira was very close. The question is, one, how far has Tony Ferguson slipped, if at all? I happen to think he has quite a bit. We're going to find out a lot about that this weekend. And the other thing is Dariush going up a level in competition going to find the same success that he's found in that, that top 15-ish type of fighter? Because El Kukui is clearly the biggest challenge of his career. So we're going to see how both these guys respond. Again, all things being equal, the skill sets are very similar. I can't wait for this fight. I think it's going to be the best fight on the card.
Oh, I mean, definitely. If you're going to have to pick a fight of the night heading into it, I'm going to pick that one as fight of the night just because of their tendency to get into wars, both of them. But both of them. And you hear Dariush talk leading up to this fight. I'm going to out crazy Tony Ferguson, and so that when he says things like that, it kind of makes me take a step back, because I don't think that Tony is all that crazy in there. He's unpredictable, but he's calculatedly unpredictable. And I feel like he was losing to Klose, Dariush, when he landed that big bomb, and that spinning back elbow was on the inside. That was a weird. I can't believe it landed. To be honest with you, and it did. And props to him. Dariush is a beast, man. There's no question about it. I just feel like Tony's the better fighter all around. There's points where he could be exploited a little bit, but whenever you get into a brawl, all that goes out the window, right? And that's what you saw in the close fight. They got into a brawl. Dariush gets hurt, and then you try to finish him, and then he lands a bomb, and he wins. I don't think that's going to happen with Tony. I don't know. I expect to see a brawl. Do not get me wrong, but I kind of expect Tony to be more reserved in this fight.
Controlled violence, controlled aggression. And it's interesting, too, because Dariush is a black belt in Muay Thai. Tony's a decorated boxer, a better boxer. Their jiu-jitsu's both black belt level. Tony's a national wrestling champion, so his wrestling's an advantage for him, whereas, in tight in the clinch is Dariush. There's so many different things within this fight, styles within styles. And, the biggest thing, though, that I'm looking at in this fight, Jeff, is both guys have a tendency to get hit. Both guys will get hit. Look, Ferguson got hit against Pettis. He got hit, he got hit against Diaz. He gets hit against everybody, right? Fair to say. So does Dariush. They both absorb punishment. Which fighter will be more capable of hurting the other one? That's a big question mark coming into this fight. Who's got the better chin? They both have great chins. Which guy will be able to hurt the other guy in the striking game? And I don't have an answer to that sitting here right now. I'm literally 50-50 on this fight as I talk. And earlier I said, hey, when Dariush beats Ferguson, I'm leaning towards Beneil. But remember one thing, guys, and always remember, never forget this. When you're an elite athlete, when you're a fighter, when you've been through the ringer in your personal life, as Tony Ferguson has, when you've been through the ringer professionally, and people are saying one more loss and you're done, you have a tendency at times to be able to turn back that clock a little bit and dial up that vintage dominating performance. Will we get that from Tony Ferguson? Because just as easily as I could see him losing this fight, Jeff, I could see him finishing it in the first round and going, now what, fuckers? Who's next? I'm back. And then Islam wants to fight him, so that'd be perfect. I'd love to see him fight Islam.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Look, I think Tony's going to win this. Tony has a 4.5-inch reach advantage, and I feel like him and Dariush are going to get in a brawl. Outside of the Gaethje fight, Tony Ferguson responds fine to taking big shots. Not only does he absorb the big shots, he fires right back and comes back like it didn't even phase him, except for the Gaethje fight. But that's a testament to Gaethje's power, right?
Well, remember, he did hurt Gaethje really bad at the end of was it round 1 or round 2? Gaethje was hurt. Gaethje was, he was hurt bad. That if that fight had gone a little longer in the first round, or that happened a little earlier, we'd have been talking about possibly a first round stoppage for Ferguson in that fight.
Gaethje gets hurt in every fight. You know, I think that's why people love Gaethje so much. He's almost hurt
he
in every
does.
fight, and then he comes back and just
Yeah.
that's just Justin Gaethje
Tony
for you,
Ferguson
man.
is a G. The number of shots he took from Gaethje that have dropped everybody else that he's
Should have
ever
thrown in the
fought.
towel, man.
And
His corner
then he
should have
should have
thrown in the
taken a year
towel.
off. You said it, and he's right. Take a year off. You should have never fought
Yeah.
Oliveira when he did. But a win
And
over
I understand
Oliveira,
why
and it
they
would have been
didn't throw
Tony
in the
Ferguson in this fight right now, right? If Ferguson had beaten Oliveira, it could be Tony in this fight very easily.
Oh yeah, it absolutely could be, because you just kind of write off the Gaethje fight as what it was. You know, I mean, look, nobody stays undefeated in this business. Khabib left.
Nobody.
You know, in his prime. You know, nobody stays very long in this business and stays undefeated. Let's put it that way.
Even Jones. Jones probably wouldn't be undefeated had he fought all the way through. The odds are overwhelmingly against that.
Yeah, and he does have a loss on his record. Whether
it's not a loss, but you're stupid.
Sure looks like an L on there to me.
The Mad Hamill because of the illegal strike. Yeah, stupid. But it is a loss.
Well, I mean, we have rules. We have rules for a reason. You can't elbow people in the back of the head, even if they're already beat. But yeah, you know, I'm not going to get caught up in this. John Jones is not undefeated.
Right? No, he's not. You're right.
Khabib is. You know, but yes, your point is, had Jones fought all the way through and not set out for all the suspensions and stuff, would he have taken an L to somebody in that time frame? Hell, I think he took an L anyway during that time frame, and maybe two.
To Gustafsson.
Gustafsson, and then the Reyes fight. It just kind of depends on how you score those.
Man, I watched the Prochazka Reyes fight again, dude. Wow.
I'll give the champion the benefit of the doubt in those really close matchups. You know, I don't have a problem with that. Although I don't agree with that mentality. There are no champions in the cage. You put the belt on the champion after the fight. You take the belt off the champion before he steps into the cage. Once they're in the cage, there's no champion in there. It's just two fighters. Nobody gets any benefit because of their accolades. But having said that, I got no problem with Jones taking the wins in both of those fights. And I think Khabib, if Khabib had stayed, he would have gotten by someone. He would have gotten clipped by someone. Because Khabib's been hitting fights and hurting fights. Hell, there was one fight where I thought he was about to be finished, and I forget which one it was, and he just turned it around and beat the crap out of the person. And I don't even remember what fight it was. It would, you know. But yes, El Kakui and Dariush get hit in fights. They absolutely get hit in fights. I feel like Tony has a history of responding better when he gets hit than Dariush does. And I feel like Tony's faced way better competition than Dariush has. And so we're going to find out. I'm picking Tony Ferguson to win that fight. And I'll go with decision. And then the reason why I say decision instead of finish is I don't know what Tony Ferguson's going to do. You know, he's changed up so much that I don't know if he's going to come out that aggressive, crazy Tony, or if he's going to come out reserved Tony. I'm 37 now. I've taken a couple of losses. Let's be smart about this. Then I think it goes the distance. But I'm picking Tony in that fight. In the main event, we know who I'm picking. And then like
you
said,
forget. I mean, Khabib fight was so great. I just wanted to pick up what you said on Khabib. I mean, he beat and a unanimous decision, a clear decision win over RDA, and that was right before RDA became the champ at lightweight. Khabib did that in 2014. The one fight where I thought Khabib had a chance to lose was Poirier. Poirier had that choke on him, and I thought for a second, wow, he might be submitting Khabib right here. But I don't know, Jeff. I mean, I'm back and forth. I'm so back and forth on these two fights. Both of them could be amazing. I really wish the Diaz fight against Edwards were on this card to make Oliveira or Chandler that much more of a star heading into the McGregor-Poirier fight this summer. But as I look at that co-main event, and you picked Tony, and, you know, I think Tony can dial it back up, another vintage performance. But Dariush's jiu-jitsu, his chin, if he gets in a slugfest with Ferguson, we know Tony's chin. Dariush isn't going to finish him. I just have a hunch that Ferguson's on that slide. I have a hunch that it was the beginning of the end in the Gaethje fight, and I have a hunch that it's going to continue in this fight. For no other reason than that feeling in my gut that his time has come and gone, and that Dariush is emerging, and he's just getting there. Just welcome to the party, Beneil Dariush at 32 years of age in his prime. I just have a feeling that Dariush is going to win. So I would go Beneil Dariush by split decision. Very close. Split decision in that fight.
Yeah, I was looking at Khabib's record. It might have been Michael Johnson. I mean, he got hit, and it could have been the Dos Anjos fight. Khabib got hit, and several times on the feet, and he kind of stopped him. And I was like, oh shit, Khabib's hurt. And maybe even Barboza hit him one good time. Look, Khabib retired undefeated. Khabib's not in the picture, right? That's why we're having a vacant lightweight title fight. So
yep,
I'll stop talking about Khabib. Yeah,
with the number 3 and 4 ranked fighters in the world fighting for the belt. 3 and 4, not 1 and 2. 3 and 4.
Well, what's more absurd, 3 and 4 fighting for the title, or 1 and 6 fighting for the title?
Neither one should be a title fight. I would leave the belt open. Why the hell not leave it open until you have a legit title fight? Why does anything have to be a title fight right now? That would be my choice. This one's not. Poirier, McGregor. Okay, Dustin, you want to take the money? Cool. We'll make this one the title fight. And of course they did. But I think this should not be a title fight. McGregor and Poirier should not be a title fight. And then you start to clear out the division to see who gets the title fight. Every single one of these guys should have to win another fight before they even have a title fight. Think about it. The only guy who's legitimately lined up to be in a title fight right now in that division is Poirier and arguably Oliveira because he's on such a big win streak. But Gaethje's coming off a loss. McGregor, forget it. You know what I mean? Chandler just one fight coming in from Bellator. So the only ones are Poirier and Oliveira. That should have been the fight. That's the fight they wanted to make, but Poirier chose the McGregor fight for the money.
But
what does that sound? It sounds like you're scratching a piece of metal with another piece of metal.
The belt doesn't mean anything, though. That's what people don't. That's where people get caught up into deserving and this isn't legit and stuff. The belt doesn't mean anything. The belt is a promotional tool used by the UFC for promotion. And that's exactly what they're using it for right here. You don't have to build Poirier. You don't have to build McGregor. You don't have to build Gaethje. Who do you have to build? Oliveira and Chandler. How do you build them? Strap a shiny thing around their waist. That's what's happening. That's what the belt is. It's a promotional tool. And that's not me saying that. That's the UFC lawyers in court saying the belt is a promotional tool. It doesn't mean anything. That's the UFC. That's not me saying that. So that's not an opinion. That's, just for those listening, because I know that people will be like, Jeff doesn't know what he's talking about. No, that's not me saying that. That's the UFC's lawyers in a court of law with BJ Penn saying the belt doesn't mean anything and it's a promotional tool.
Yeah, and if you're gonna listen to this show and think one of us doesn't know what we're talking about,
it's probably me.
To the bone. This dude is legitimately 18 and a half years deep, and he has votes for the rankings in the UFC and Bellator. So, I mean, look, there's Tony right there with that belt that he won by submitting Kevin Lee from his back. And, look, man, it's just, Tony took a lot of damage in that fight. He always takes damage. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. I'm just saying that's why this is for a title fight. It's because the best way to promote these guys is to give them a belt, right? Because then you get to put champion by their name. Because everybody else in the top of that division are built. Like, you don't have to.
What were you on a boat? What was that footage? Was that on a boat? Those look like portals in a submarine. What were those things off the side of the stage? Did you see those, Jeff?
I didn't see it. He needs to run it.
That one was in Houston. I remember I was there, Jeff. Talk about being old and being in the game. Now watch this. When Tony walks off, there you go. What are those?
Oh.
What is that, man?
What the hell
is it like an escape hatch? Like what's going on?
That's
like the press room in Houston.
It looks like it's a tent. Yeah. It looks like it's a tent outside of the
outside the Apex
building.
Oh, that's outside the Apex.
It's the Apex tent. It's the damn Apex.
No, that can't be the Apex. How is that the Apex?
Sorry, outside of T-Mobile.
Outside of T-Mobile, the tent. Oh, that was T-Mobile. That's right. That was the one down in the end there. Okay, so Tony Ferguson, Jeff, this is how far back I go with him. You always want to watch it. I went to Houston when I was doing my my traveling to almost every fight card, sitting cage side. I went to Houston in October of 2013 for the Velasquez JDS trilogy. And Cormier was on that card, and you look at that card. So you never know what you're seeing in advance when you're seeing it. So, for example, looking at that fight, Tony Ferguson's win streak started that night against Mike Rio. He darsed him. It was on the prelim Facebook Live card. Tony Ferguson and Mike Rio, that was the first of his win streak. That's all the way back in 2013. That's a long time ago. That was the same one where Melendez and Sanchez were on that card, Cormier and Roy Nelson. That was DC's last fight at heavyweight, and Cain JDS. But, I mean, Tony Ferguson has been at the top level of this sport in that division for a long time. And someone said it in the chat. Tony Ferguson has taken a lot of damage over the years and a lot of damage in his most recent fights. When you look at the Gaethje fight and the Oliveira fight, I mean, he didn't take any damage really from Cowboy Cerrone, but he did against Pettis, and that was a big one. I mean, here's a guy who he's taken a lot of shots in his career, man. He's taken a lot of shots, and he's just eating them. He's a tough dude, but I just wonder, you say it all the time, Jeff, when you reach a point in your career, certain fighters, and I was there for this one, certain fighters reach a point in their career where they've taken too much damage and it starts to add up. And I think Tony's entering that phase now. If he's not there already.
I don't know if it's the damage or just, if Tony's falling off, it's probably because he's 37 years old. Yeah, although I'll say this, you're right. He's taken a lot of damage throughout his career. He doesn't care to get into these firefights with people. I was never worried that he took too much damage. The only fight that worried me that Tony was taking too much damage was the Gaethje fight. I felt like they should have thrown in the towel. That was too much, right? That was just too much. We know that Tony can take a shot, and we know that Tony can respond. And it's not like he's taking that Gaethje beating in all of his fights. Yeah, he gets hit. But only the Gaethje fight has me worried about the damage. And yeah, I wish he would have taken time off, but it's Tony Ferguson. You take an L and you try to get right back in there and, get it back and get back in the top of the division, especially at his age. He shouldn't have done that. And so he lost back-to-back fights. He bit off something. He was the one guy, he was the one guy that says, yeah, I'll fight Charles Oliveira. And he paid the price for that. For Charles Oliveira.
He is the one guy. He is the one guy. Props to
Tony's
Kukui.
Always
he
the
is.
Guy, right? Tony.
He always is the guy.
Yeah.
And I still want to see him fight Conor. Conor loses to Poirier. I want to see Tony versus Conor. I do.
I want to see Gaethje and Chandler versus Conor. Because I think that's what the UFC will do. You want Conor into those striking battles. You don't want to put him in there with Oliveira. Who's just going to take him down, or Khabib.
No, it'd be Gaethje or the Poirier rematch that I'd want to see.
Yeah.
Gaethje
Tony
or I'm sorry, not the Poirier. I mean the Poirier Gaethje rematch. Tony obviously never fought Poirier.
Yeah, but Tony might stand there and trade with Conor all night long, even if he's losing it. Yeah, because Tony's just a weird cat.
Tony,
right?
Tony's Tony.
He might shake Conor's hand and says, "I will not shoot for a takedown this whole fight." Let's just agree to it, because that's who Tony is. I wouldn't suggest him do that. He has a huge advantage on the ground over Conor. So take that fight to the ground.
Huge advantage.
Yeah, but I think that they'll match Conor up. If Conor loses to Poirier, I think they'll matching up with strikers. And particularly, the Diaz trilogy, because it's going to sell crazy.
There's a Nick Diaz fight for Conor. There's a Masvidal fight for Conor. There's all kinds of fights for Conor McGregor and for Gaethje. But if I'm Gaethje, I want my next fight to be a title fight or against the number one contender to get a title fight. So if Poirier or McGregor is next, and I believe one of those guys is, and injuries happen, anything could happen. Look, I mean, one of the guys Gaethje's not there this week as a backup, but as far as I know, and we have the press conference live today on MMA Weekly, by the way, at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. That'll be live right here on MMA Weekly in the weigh-ins tomorrow. And of course, you're going to want to smash that like button and subscribe to us right here, and hit that bell so whenever we're going live. We'll be live for the fights on Saturday night, Jeff and I as well, and then Monday we'll have the Fallout Show, 9 a.m. Pacific and 12 Eastern, Jeff. But when I look at this fight and I look at these two guys, one of them is going to walk out of there as the lightweight champion of the world. We've said this is the best division in the sport. The winner of this fight is the king of the best division of the sport. That just doesn't sit with me. It just doesn't sit with me that one of these guys will be the champion this weekend. It just doesn't feel right to me. But we know Poirier McGregor will get the winner. Where does that leave Gaethje? Where does that leave everybody else? Because let's say you'd have to assume at this point that Poirier is going to beat Conor. Let's just say it's Poirier, and you guys tell me I'm wrong in the chat, all you Conor lovers, and believe me, I'm still 50-50 on that fight too. Conor could just as well. But the winner is going to get the title shot. Say Poirier wins and Oliveira wins, which is what everybody seems to think would happen. Poirier wins, Oliveira wins. That's the title fight. And Poirier knew that. All he has to do is beat Conor. It would be the same thing. That leaves Chandler out there coming off a loss. That leaves Conor coming off a loss. We don't know what's happening in the Ferguson-Dariush fight. Let's say Tony wins that one. Tony's just, he's going to get another top-level guy. So if it's Poirier and Oliveira for the belt, Chandler coming off the loss, Conor coming off the loss, and El Kukui, where does the rest of the division go? And who fights Justin? Where does Justin Gaethje fit in? Where does he fit in? Is he going to be on the shelf until the fall? It's looking like it is. He will be.
I mean, it just kind of depends. Look, let's say Conor wins, right? And Charles Oliveira wins. I don't know that the UFC does that fight. I don't know. I think that they would be better off doing Gaethje and Conor for a non-title fight. And then maybe Conor going up to 170, like he says, and stay the hell away from Oliveira.
Oh my God. Do you really, if you're a Conor fan, do you really want to throw him in that cage with Kamaru Usman? I mean, think about that for 1 second. Boy.
No, but I would throw him up there against Masvidal.
Ugly right there.
Yeah, but I would throw him up there against Masvidal, for the one-off. But no, I don't think Conor can make a run at the 170-pound title. But if he fights Nate Diaz and Masvidal, those fights could very well be at 170.
Right.
But it's interesting.
The Diaz trilogy would have to be at 170 because the first two were, unless there was a belt on the line at 155. Because if Diaz wins this fight against Edwards at 170, he could be a title over Edward.
Yeah. But I think that the UFC would be hesitant to put Conor in there with Oliveira if Oliveira wins, because then you could potentially ruin Conor's ability to sell those future fights. And so maybe you do throw a Gaethje in there and somebody to try to get Oliveira out of there, because Conor matches a hell of a lot better against Poirier, Chandler, or Gaethje, in my opinion, than he does.
And
Oliveira.
Conor's not going back to featherweight, guys. You can stop that now in the chat. Conor McGregor's not going back to featherweight. It's not happening ever.
No, he's more likely to go to 170 than 145.
Yeah.
And he has fights at 170. Like I said, Masvidal, Diaz, those fights are at 170. And like you brought up, if Diaz beats Leon Edwards and then, McGregor beats Diaz in a trilogy at 170, then McGregor is kind of lined up for a title fight if he wanted to be at 170. Man. It just kind of depends on what the UFC wants to do with Conor. If Poirier wins, everything makes sense, right? If Poirier beats McGregor, and no matter who wins tomorrow night, then Poirier gets a title fight, and everything gets fixed on the next fight. If Poirier loses to McGregor, then everything is still kind of murky, in my opinion. Everything's all jacked up still. We don't know.
I have a scenario for you, Jeff. I have a scenario for you that I think would work great, but it doesn't involve Conor Poirier winner having the title shot right away. So Oliveira beats Chandler, or whoever wins the fight. If Chandler wins, even better for me, because I think Gaethje should get the winner of this fight. And then the winner of Poirier McGregor would get Gaethje. That's how I would do it. I would have Gaethje fight the winner of this fight and have McGregor Poirier winner, because they've both, and look, people say, well, why Conor? Conor's done a lot for the sport. Conor's Conor. Poirier's the best in the division, we think, right now. Gaethje should get the winner of this fight, and then the winner of Poirier McGregor should get the winner of that fight, because the Gaethje fight could be in August, whereas the McGregor fight is in July. So Oliveira wins this fight, Chandler wins this fight. That's 3 months out. It could be in August, which is traditionally when they would go to Southern California. So you'd have McGregor Poirier in July in Vegas, Southern California in August, with Gaethje with the winner of this fight here Saturday. Let's say it's Oliveira. Let's say it's Chandler. Doesn't really matter. Then the winner of that gets the winner of McGregor and Poirier. You don't have Gaethje sitting on the sidelines all that time, and he gets that title shot. Maybe he fights the loser, but I think Gaethje is going to fight the winner or the loser of this fight. Next. I don't know which one. I think it should be the winner. But if they're going to give McGregor or Poirier the title shot and hold up the division and keep Gaethje out, I don't know. That's not what I would do. I think of those three, Chandler, Oliveira, and Gaethje, they're on the outside where Poirier's here, right? And I'm leaving McGregor out of this for a reason. Poirier's here, right? He's the best in the division. The other 3 guys should all fight each other. Whoever emerges from that group gets Poirier, assuming Poirier beats McGregor. And if McGregor beats Poirier, more power to him. He's in there too. And a dream scenario for the UFC, you ready, would be Chandler wins this fight against Oliveira. Gaethje beats Chandler. McGregor beats Poirier. Gaethje Conor, Madison Square Garden this fall for the belt. That's my dream scenario right there. Not going to happen, but it's my dream scenario. Can you imagine Gaethje and McGregor headlining Madison Square Garden in November? Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I mean, it could happen for sure. I'm not writing Conor off in that trilogy fight with Poirier. I don't know what the odds are. I mean, Conor landed punches in that first. Conor didn't look bad in the rematch. He did not look bad at all.
No, he didn't. He did not at all. He looked good
until right before he got finished. He looked good. He landed shots. He was moving well. And then you knew when Poirier started landing the counter right hand, and he started pointing at McGregor. Well, he was landing the counter right hand because he had compromised Conor's movement, but he was calling Conor out on it. And then Conor kind of realized that, oh shit, I got to make something happen now. And he paid the price for it. But I don't think Conor looked bad in that fight up until those 30 seconds before the finish. And I don't think he looked bad then. I felt like he got desperate, that he realized I got to get Poirier. Yeah, I got to get Poirier out of there now, or I'm done. And so I don't know that Poirier is going to win the trilogy. Conor lands a bomb. Poirier, just like the first fight, we saw what happens. I feel Poirier is a hell of a lot more confident now than he was when they fought the first time. I feel like, that maybe McGregor's not, but I'm not sleeping on McGregor in that. Right now, I think that's probably a pick'em fight, and I'll wait until we get close to it and kind of watch the training footage. And
it's going to be unbelievable, Jeff.
Yeah. But Conor's the cash cow, man. Conor's the cash cow. So they clearly the UFC would, the UFC's not going to openly root for anyone, but are they going to behind the scenes have friggin' plans to make the biggest money? Yes. So, the UFC.
That's the Mayweather work out there.
Conor win, right? I mean, because Conor wins, then Conor gets the title fight against whoever the hell it is, especially if it's Chandler. Like if Chandler beats Oliveira, Conor and Chandler would be enormous.
Amazing.
And so I think the UFC's done a good job with the outside of that. The McGregor Poirier rematch should have been for the title. That's my one beef. But I understand the UFC was holding out for Khabib, trying to get him to come back. But now we've kind of made a mess of the division. But if it works out where Conor beats Poirier and Chandler beats Oliveira, and that's the fight for the championship, that is enormous. And then it's all kind of works out. If it ends up
Gaethje has to be the backup, though, right? Doesn't Gaethje have to be on call for that July fight? I mean, how great would it be if Poirier is on?
I would. Yeah.
What if Poirier can't make that fight and Gaethje hops in? Like, do you lose anything? No. You might gain a little bit. You might gain a little bit there.
Yeah, but they're going to have to get Conor to agree to switch a late opponent if that happens. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of things that have to go into that, because Poirier and Conor both have to agree to fight Gaethje on short notice if something happens.
On short notice.
So
on short notice.
Yeah, and I wouldn't do that if I were them. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't do that. If I were Poirier and I were Conor, I'm fighting Poirier or I'm fighting Conor, and if one of us gets hurt, then postpone it, reschedule it. We'll do it again. I'm not taking a short notice fight. You because then you ruin the trilogy, right? I mean, just think if Gaethje comes in there and knocks out Conor or knocks out Poirier in that, then you've screwed everything up. So I think that no, there shouldn't be a backup for that fight. There should be a backup for Saturday. Gaethje should be the backup for this event.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, this is interesting, man. Oliveira is the hottest fighter in the division in terms of the win streak. Chandler coming in from Bellator and doing what he did to Hooker. Jeff, we're going to wrap it up here. It's been a great show. I mean, the numbers keep going up in the chat. We love you guys. Don't forget, subscribe, hit that like button, hit that bell. You can ring my bell. So you know what I'm saying, right? The bells of war. Ring them so you know when we're coming to you live, which we'll be doing Saturday night for UFC 262. And that will be at, I believe, 8 o'clock Pacific time, or 7 o'clock Pacific time, rather. 10 o'clock Eastern. We'll be live during UFC 262. Oliveira versus Chandler. All right, Jeff Cain. And then Monday, we have the Fallout Show, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. We'll be live on MMA Weekly throughout the week on all of our platforms, on the webpage. Everybody doing a bang-up job covering UFC 262. Don't miss any of our coverage here on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source of news and entertainment in mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. All right, Jeff Cain, here we go. Moment of truth. We already made our picks, but we're going to recap them here. Tony El Kukui Ferguson against Beneil Dariush, both black belts in jiu-jitsu. Dariush, a black belt in Muay Thai. Ferguson, arguably a better boxer and wrestler. Ferguson, the more established and experienced name. He's had longer fights, bigger fights. Dariush just kind of entering that big-time realm, but he's on a big-time win streak as well. Tony Ferguson, underdog. You heard me right. Minus 185 is the biggest line I see for Dariush. Plus 152 for Ferguson is the biggest, and I see it all the way, in the 170 range, in the 140s. Dariush, a pretty decent-sized favorite in this fight over Tony Ferguson. I'm going with Beneil Dariush. I think it's his time. I think he's fighting for such a big purpose underneath it all. He's got a lot of people behind him with the mental health awareness. He's Iranian. He's got a whole country behind him. It's just his time. I believe over there at King's MMA with Gastelum, with Vettori, who's got the title fight coming up against Adesanya. It's his time to pick up this signature win. I'm going Beneil Dariush by split decision over Tony Ferguson.
I'm going to go Tony Ferguson either by knockout or unanimous decision. I think this is going to be a brawl. I think that Tony's got reach, and I think that Tony's going to land good in the exchanges, and Beneil's going to engage in those exchanges. So, this fight could end early, to be honest with you. Both of them could land a big bomb just because of the way both of those guys fight. But I'm going to pick Tony Ferguson in this to rebound after back-to-back losses, finish Beneil Dariush, and then we'll see what happens to Tony Ferguson after that. But I wouldn't sleep on Dariush because, like I said, I think this fight's going to be fight of the night. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think it's going to be a brawl, and it's kind of hard to pick. But I'm going to pick Tony in it because I think that Tony's is the better fighter overall.
How does he win?
I'm picking him either by knockout or unanimous decision. And the reason why there's two far apart is because I don't know how he's going to approach this fight. If Tony approaches this fight the way he approaches all of his fights in the past, I'm going to pick him by knockout or TKO. If he approaches this fight more reserved because he's got a new training camp and everything, unanimous decision.
All right. Every time I see that tent, I think of this Ren and Stimpy episode. I was watching with my kid when he was little, and someone knocked on the tent. Stimpy, answer the flap. Every time I see that tent, I think of it. Ren and Stimpy. I don't know how that popped into my head, but Jeff, main event, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, the big-time win streak of Oliveira, the third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, the absurd number of finishes, 27 in his pro career, 18 submissions, 9 knockouts, goes against the former multiple-time Bellator MMA world champ, the guy who's been waiting his whole life in his professional career for this UFC title shot, the guy who comes at you from the opening bell like a madman and doesn't stop with the relentless pressure, the man who has fought multiple 5-round fights against the man who hasn't, Michael Chandler in this fight, coming in with all the championship experience. He's got all the reasons for you to think, hey, it's his time coming in from another organization to win this title against Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler in his career has 10 knockouts and 7 submission wins. These two guys, Jeff Cain, have 44 finishes combined. Let me say that again. 44 finishes combined from Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira. I've been back and forth on this one. I haven't tipped my hand, but I'm just going to say it. I've known him a long time. He used to train at Power MMA when I was doing my shows with Ryan Bader out of there. He's been managed by the same company as Bader and all those guys for years, so I met him there. His college wrestling coach, Sean Charles, was the coach at ASU. I was on the board raising money for the program when Ben Askren was an assistant. I've known him a long time, and one thing I know about Michael Chandler is that when that light gets bright, when that opportunity of a lifetime comes his way, he is more than ready for it. He has cardio for days. He is so aggressive and so violent. I believe he wears down Charles Oliveira early in this fight. If he doesn't get finished early or walk into a submission, Michael Chandler wears him down throughout the first few rounds, and then he starts to take him down. Then he starts to beat him up. I see Michael Chandler winning a very one-sided decision in the main event at UFC 262. And Michael Chandler is the new UFC lightweight champion, walking out of there with the gold on Saturday night. Book it. Mark it down. See that old glory right there? The American flag on full display, waving that thing all over Houston, Jeff Cain, and new Michael Chandler.
Okay, now back to reality. We're going to see Bronx doing his dance, right? We're going to see Bronx doing his dance in here.
Back to reality.
After submitting Michael Chandler.
There it is.
Early.
He's on top of the cage with the flag, Jeff.
Yeah. So we don't have footage of Bronx doing his thing. You know how he does like the rubber body. We're gonna go with Charles Oliveira by submission in the first round. And like I said, I think it's gonna be a standing guillotine. He's gonna get him in there early.
Woo.
First round. But that's,
hey,
that's
now.
where we're gonna put him. And I don't care
First
about the flag. He can first round standing guillotine choke.
There is.
Chandler's gonna get in there and fit. Hold on. Here, is he gonna do his little? You know what I'm talking about? When he wins the fights, he does like a Jello man sort of. I Bronx is kind of.
Did you say Yellow Man?
Jello Man. Jello is.
Oh, I thought you meant Yellow Man, like the reggae artist Yellow Man. There he is against Kevin Lee. Watch this. Watch this high level shit. This is great. Look at the kick. Watch this. You don't know what? Boom, kick. Watch this, guys. You'll see some spinning kick. Now you'll see some elbows and some uppercuts. Boom. I mean, this dude. I mean, that's the striking. He's not just a jiu-jitsu dude, but I just don't believe he's going to be able to fend off the violent aggression that Michael Chandler will bring, and I think it'll wear him down. Look, I'm surprised that I'm picking a decision because Chandler has dynamite in those fists, and I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks his ass out at any point in time in the fight. Oliveira's striking is very high level too. Look, they're both great. I just feel like it's Mike Chandler's time. He's got his kid. He's got the higher power. He's super religious. He's got everything like spiritually lined up. I'm big on alignment and energies. All those energies, all those frequencies, and everything for Michael Chandler. That's why I'm picking him.
Yeah, I don't.
The universe told me to, Jeff. The universe is speaking to me.
Yeah, well, I don't get into.
He's never been submitted, man.
Not yet. Looks like he's due.
Someone's coming in your. Is they knocking on your door, Jeff? Time to end the show. All right, hey, we're done here anyway, guys. Jeff, your final thoughts, man. I mean, look, any of the other fights, because you got Oliveira and Ferguson, I got Dariush and Chandler, both by decision. Any other fight you're really looking forward to on this card? We don't have time to pick it all. I mean, Antonina Shevchenko's on here, a big favorite over Andrea Lee. You got Jacare on here against Andre Muniz, Barbosa and Burgos. I like the Chukagian Arao fight. That's a pretty good one, but I'm going with Caitlin in that one. Your last thoughts before we wrap it?
Barbosa fight. Don't sleep on that Barbosa fight. But I've got to go. I mean, I've got this has gone long, and I've got a kid that's knocking on the door, so probably wanting lunch.
There you go. Make them lunch, Jeff Cain. Love you, buddy. Appreciate everyone at MMA Weekly. Guys, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button. Thank you for being here in the chat. Guys, hit that bell. Make sure you know when we're going to be back. This will be here on YouTube all weekend long. We'll be doing a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget the website, the best coverage in the game, MMAWeekly.com. Jeff Cain, the editor of that site. He's a busy guy. He's a dad. He's an editor. He's a host of these shows. And it will be an awesome weekend for all of us here at MMA Weekly. We will be on live during the fights, UFC 262. And then the Fallout Show, 9 a.m. Pacific and 12 Eastern on Monday. It's a big fight weekend. The lightweight strap is on the line. Will it be Oliveira? Will it be Chandler? We shall see, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Until next time, it's Gries telling you to keep your game tight and your mind right. We are out.